I'm going to go to these Escapade thingy-majiggies and see exactly what they are. Hopefully they're not, like the side stories in the paid version of DDLC, where they're just text and I'm just reading it. But it might be the case, in which case let's be reading text. So here we go. You're about to play the Escapade entitled Episode 1, The Defendant's Antechamber. This escapade includes spoilers for the first game's story. Continue? Yes. Just look at the priceless treasure now. Myself, I have scrubbed and scrubbed. But the repellent odor of meat will never be repelled from its resplendent surface again. But you have it back in your possession at least. You should be grateful, old man. How dare you? Excuse me, but I'd like to get at that Zabuton cushion there if I could. Rest assured, you miserable military malefactor. This is not over. Incarceration awaits those who would defraud a senior citizen for his precious treasures. Watch your tongue, old man. Mark my words, I won't. Sorry, Sergeant, but could I just get at that Zabuton cushion there as well? Oh. I won't go to jail. Never. Imagine if I did. The very next day, my boy would starve without the chain of command in place to provide for him. Using the child to protect herself. Myself, I call that abstinent cowardice. Oh, really? And who just employed the old poor defenseless senior citizen tactic, The only way to fight an enemy by using underhand tactics is with a tit-for-tat strategy. I'm sorry to interrupt again, but I just need to get at that Western-style cushion there on the sofa. Enough of this insubordination. What do you want, man? Please, don't mind me. Do my eyes deceive me, or is this the wide-eyed criminal from the trial before? Wide-eyed, perhaps, but criminal? No. What is this unhealthy fascination you exhibit with the seating arrangement of the others, Why are you peering under the cushion of this upholstered seat? Oh well, the thing is... Any luck? Did you find it? No, sadly not. I don't think it's here, Kazuma. You really are a liability, Ryonosuke. Report! At once. Have you lost something? Is that it? Yes, we were just on our way to a party to celebrate my friend's victory here when... I realized that my university pin badge was missing. A university pin badge, you say? Yes, from my collar here, you see. Affirmative, uniforms must be kept in prime condition at all times. A missing badge is unacceptable. I thought if I looked around, it would probably turn up somewhere. Like the old tale of the Coben coin and the stake. A parable of which I am acutely aware. But I've exhausted my search now, really. The only logical conclusion is that someone must have stolen it. Don't look at me. I don't just find any old metal objects irresistible, you know. Imagine what would happen if a little trooper Ido here swallowed something like that. I'm afraid we'll have to give up, Ryonosuke. Still, if you tell the office your student number, they should be able to issue you with a new one. What's the matter? Don't tell me. Yes, I don't remember my student number. I don't believe it. I mean, this is the second time you've lost your badge, isn't it? Third, actually. If you didn't think you could remember it, you should have made a note of it somewhere. I told you that until I was blue in the face the last time this happened. Yes, I do seem to remember someone telling me something along those lines. It was you, wasn't it? But he says, was it? You can't even remember who told you that you need to remember it. Well, student numbers are 6 digits, Kazuma. Who could remember 6 whole digits? Mine was 8 digits when I was in college. And I could remember it, although I don't know, like, what all of the digits are today. Like, no, I think I can. I can get through all 8. Yeah, I know all 8. Anyway. In fact, they only use the last 3 digits. Well, that might help, I suppose. What did I miss here? Yume isn't exactly a long-established university, you know. All the numbers are rather low. Okay. That might help? Rinosuke, it's only 3 digits you need to remember, just 3. Sorry, my brain is such a disappointment. Yes, well, anyway, young man, myself, I was greatly impressed with you in the courtroom today. Oh, you mean me? A lawyer already, before you've even graduated, and such a loyal friend to this one. This one? What's that supposed to mean? Oh no, I still have much to learn. In fact, that was brought home to me in no uncertain terms only last year. My Achilles heel was spectacularly exposed by my best friend here. Indeed? What? By me? Is this the first time I've heard about it? Yes, by Rinosuke Naruhodo. You can't have forgotten, surely. It was last summer, at the speech contest. The speech contest? Oh, that. Contestants had to take the stage and deliver a public address on any subject they chose. They were competing to give the most compelling and powerful speech. And yours was great. It made a huge impression on the audience. Obviously, since I was a budding student of law, I was determined to win. And sure enough, one by one, my opposition fell. When I reached the final at last, I came up against you. Yes, so you did. Not being rude, but when I first laid eyes on you, I thought to myself, this cheeky, wide-eyed no-hoper is out of his depth. He's going to be a pushover. That's your version of not being rude, is it? Well, I paid for my complacency because it brought on that humiliating defeat. Defeat? How were your ranks compromised? My speech was going very well. I had the audience in the palm of my hand. They hung on my every word. And then, when I came to the very last line... Yes, what happened at the very last line? I was supposed to be a climactic end. Unfortunately, I completely fouled it up. Never. You mean you stumbled on your words? Spectacularly. Even now, I can't believe I ruined it. Well, what on earth did you say, man? This might make more sense in Japanese. Rinosuke, you'd better say it. I still can't get my tongue around it. Sure, of course. I can still recall it perfectly. What you said at the end of your speech. Or rather, what you intended to say at the end of your speech was this. So arise, ladies and gentlemen, and applaud our forefathers' plight and the fight of filial piety. Okay, so arise, ladies and gentlemen, and applaud our forefathers' plight and the fight for filial piety. The fight for filial piety. Okay, gee. So arise, ladies and gentlemen, and applaud our forefathers' plight and the fight for filial piety. And what went wrong? What indeed? Myself, I see no problem with the pronunciation of these paltry words. In that case, old man, I invite you to say it yourself. Very well then, I shall. Ahem. So arise, ladies and gentlemen, and applaud our forefathers' plight, and the fight for filial piety. It's impossible. The arise, ladies and gentlemen part I delivered perfectly. But the next part had me floundering for a whole 5 minutes. By the end of it, I was on my knees in front of the podium, a blabbering mess. And that was when the audience started to heckle you. Arise, arise, they were shouting. Well, hell on earth. But then, of course, this man went and delivered his word-perfect speech with a perfect ending. How did it go again? Let me see. So, my dear fellows, the message is simple. Treat your father and mother with respect. Something like that. I mean, talk about stating the obvious, but the fact is, I lost to that speech. Tongue-tied is the only way to describe it. Well, it is quite tricky to say, I agree. The fight for filial piety, especially. Wait. Filial. And ever since that day, I had this question whirling around in my head. Why did our forefathers choose such an awkward phrase? Was it to mock their children? I mean, it should never have been called filial piety. Arg. At least you're going to Great Britain soon. It might not come up much there. Well, anyway. Having lost that accursed contest, I came after you to ask you a question. How is it that you never trip up on your words? I inquired. And you just gave me a broad smile and said, speaking fast is my hobby. I mean, really, what kind of hobby is that? Do you think you could take your hand off of your sword? Besides, it's just a way to pass the time. After that, you started talking at me 10 to the dozen, like you were possessed almost. Honestly, you can't imagine the shock I suffered that day. You really can't. You're right, I really can't. Speaking fast is just the sort of hobby I expect a civilian like you to waste his time on. Well, you have to practice, of course. But there are some simple things to start with. Is that the British spelling of practice? Practice. Like this famous one, for example. Swift samurai sword swiped silently sideways. That's easier than whatever was the thing I had to say before. Ah, yes, a decrepit tongue of an ailing frame, such as mine, can find its way around that one. Correct. I have no doubt, it's just a bit of fun, really. I can't imagine anybody would struggle to say it. Isn't that right, Kazuma? Swift samurai sword. Ah. A blabbering mess by word 2. It's not just the samurai. Every good soldier needs to be able to handle a sword. That's why I've been busy teaching Ido the finer points of swordplay. None of this wordplay nonsense, private. Come to think of it, not long after that, we started to attend lectures together, didn't we? And we got into the debate about family values at the Sukiyaki place on campus. Do you remember? Yes, your argument was full of jokes and puns and wordplay as usual. I remember it well. Oh, was it? In any case, I swore that I would never let myself forget the shock you gave me back then. And as a symbol of how seriously I took that oath, I decided to wear this. My red Hashimaki headband. Sorry, Kazuma. Yes? You've lost me there, I'm afraid. I don't see the link. What does your red headband have to do with your oath? Because it will always remind me of that smug look on your face as you utter those tantalizing words. What words? You mean another tongue twister? I practiced and practiced until my tongue bled, but in the end I mastered it. Mastered what? Well, I think it's time you heard this, actually. Listen carefully now. Here goes. Red headband, lead headband, dead headband. There, word perfect, see? I'd actually been meaning to ask you about that. About the story behind your headband, I mean. Well, now you know, so that I'll never forget the shock and humiliation of that day. That's why I wear the red headband every single day without fail. Red Dead Redemption Band. Well, I don't know exactly how much of a shock you think you had back then, but it can't be more than the shock you've just given me now. What do you mean? Well, I'm sorry to have to tell you, but I thought that headband was much more significant. The tongue twister I said didn't go the way you seem to have remembered it. Huh? It's just as famous as Swift samurai swords, so I can't believe you don't know it, really. It goes. Red bread pan, lead bread pan, dead bread man. Wait, what? Bed red pan, huh? It seems I've knocked some wind out of that headband of yours. It's not too late, Private. You can always start wearing a red headpan on your head instead. Or, I mean, a red bread pan, sorry. Your youthful vigor is manifest, young man. Your cheeks are glowing redder than your hachimaki. Why do so many words have to be so similar? So, looking forward to Great Britain then, where you'll have to deliver speeches in court in English. I suppose I can always shell seashells on the seashore. Except he said it wrong, so he says shell seashells. Wait, the tongue. Okay, what's the name of the person who sells the seashells on the seashore? Sally sells seashells on the seashore. If you say it wrong, it makes it harder. Shell seashells on the she-shore. So I was right, it's just text. I mean, unfortunately, my thing I didn't want to happen was what came true. Great, so I'm just gonna be reading text. Philly. Well, I'll just keep reading text, I guess. It's almost 2 weeks now since we left Japan. I can't believe how quickly time has gone. So, our next port of call will be Shanghai. Who's there? Who could it be at this hour? Well, you would think it would be Inspector Satoru, right? But they're gonna do some twist here to make it funny. Or try to make it funny. A detective. A detective? Who? A great detective. So he's actually gonna tell him the plan you need to play dead? I don't get it. What's a great detective? If you would just be so kind as to open the door. Yes, sorry, of course. Is something wrong, detective? Are you investigating a case? Where'er a great detective goes, great cases occur. Indeed, I am the root of all evil. Sorry, then I don't think I want you in my cabin. Under our very noses on this steamship, a terrible theft has just occurred. What? You noticed, I presume, the brief power failure a short while ago? Yes, the power couldn't have been out for more than 10 minutes, though. Indeed, yet that was ample time for this wicked crime to be perpetrated. I see. Well, clearly it's a case that needs investigating. Precisely. The culprit ran away in this direction, down the first-class cabin passageway here. Really? The thief came this way? I'm quite sure of it. It may have escaped the attention of the dim-witted crew, but not of the great detective. To that end, I would be obliged if you would allow me to investigate here in this cabin. Well, there's this problem where there's a stowaway in this cabin that I don't want you to find, so no. How curious. Is there some reason why it would inconvenience you to have this cabin searched? Inconvenience me? Well, I'd be lying if I said no. After all, there's a stowaway in that wardrobe right over there. It's just me in here, you see. No one else. So you might perhaps want to focus your attention on one of the other first-class cabins. As it happens, you are the only first-class passenger at present. The other cabins are vacant. Oh. Did that rather tragic rumbling of the stomach arise from within you, my good fellow? Of course, as I said, I am the only person in here. It's not long until dinner time now, so perhaps we could do this afterwards. I do apologize, sir, but it is of first importance that the investigation is not delayed. Now, if you'll excuse me. Wait, where did he go? How did he suddenly move all the way over there? Yes, without a doubt, if the culprit were to be hiding in this cabin, it would have to be inside this wardrobe. I shall need to examine this wardrobe thoroughly. I presume you have no objection? I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to decline. Really, you won't find... Did those two rather tragic sneezes arise from your good self? Of course they did. As I said, I'm the only person in here. You have a curious knack of talking while sneezing, then. Twice, no less. This is going to be a tough one to argue. I was watching you quite intently, sir, and I assure you, I saw no signs of a sneeze. Couldn't Ryan have held his nose? As I was saying, I shall need to examine this wardrobe. We had it now then. The game's up. Click creak. This is how he knew how to do the decoy then. Or are they gonna do there's no one in there? Nobody's hiding in there, it seems. Whoa. What? You seem surprised. No, not at all. Yes, I am. He was in there for sure. I shut the doors on him myself. Knock, knock. More visitors? Who's this now? Rhinosuke, right? Excusing me. Seaman Stroganoff. Sorry for disturbing, but crime has been committed on board ship. Yes, I heard. A terrible theft, apparently. How do you know this? Well, the detective here just informed me, you see. Detective? Yes, I assumed you must have asked him to investigate. Detective, could you... Where did he go? I must ask you to cooperate with the investigation into this crime fully. Uh-oh, he's glaring at the wardrobe already. Click creak. Ah. Ha 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 ha. Well done, you found me. What are you doing hiding in my wardrobe? My good man, I was merely assessing the practicality of concealment in such a place. And I would say that at a push, a human could survive for up to 5 minutes in that cramped space. Rinosuke's been in there for a fortnight. Is he not human? Who are you? Shh. This is the moment of truth. The great detective is about to unveil the sordid details of this wretched crime. You mean to say... Yes, there can be no doubt that the culprit of this terrible theft has indeed concealed himself within this wardrobe. What? But that's impossible. He couldn't have done. Because my best friend was in there the entire time, or at least, I thought he was. How can you be sure of this? Elementary, my dear fellow. The criminal left behind the most revealing evidence. How else could you explain these 3 bones? What the? He's right, look at those gnawed bones in there. And 3 of them. The criminal has escaped this time. But I will find him and crush him. Could I ask you something, Detective? Why, yes, of course. I am always delighted to answer an inquiring mind. In this terrible theft, what exactly was stolen? Aha, what else? But some steaks. On the rib bone. Huh, did you say steaks on the rib bone? For this evening's dinner, 3 rib steaks were stolen from ship's kitchen only a short time ago. There was malfunction with generator and ship was without lights for 10 minutes. Chef who saw criminal said that he ran away down first-class passageway. And now I am on his tail. I know I did. This doesn't sound Russian at all. Russian sounds actually a lot different. I'm afraid to say, dear fellow, that I skipped the text. That your man is no longer in this cabin. But how? To the cabin door no less. Having devoured his haul in this wardrobe, the culprit discarded the bones, and concealed himself behind the cabin door as you came inside. Then attention was turned to the wardrobe. When attention was turned to the wardrobe, he seized his chance to escape through the open door. What? Make haste, my good man, after the culprit. I shall follow presently. Something troubles you, sir. I think maybe criminal is not running away at all. What are you suggesting? Now I know where the dog is buried. Mr. Asoki. Me? When I think that you are a culprit, everything is falling in places. The criminal had disappeared in first-class passageway. The bones in the wardrobe are clues that pointing their fingers at you. Don't be ridiculous, I would never. Yes, of course. I established at once that you couldn't be the perpetrator of this crime. You did? Why? How are you so sure? My dear fellow, there are but 2 things in this world in which one can rely with total certainty. But 2 things. The first is the word of a great detective, and the second... Prone. The second is the tragic rumbling of an empty belly. Not again. When I first entered the cabin, there did arise from this gentleman a belly rumbling so odiously tragic that it confirmed beyond all doubt that the man had not eaten a single rib steak in some time, let alone 3. Why do I have to suffer this humiliation when I've done nothing wrong? Horses, I will catch this thief. He cannot have gone far. Indeed, assuming you decided against a post-meal constitutional swim. Well, if you'll excuse me now, my apologies for upsetting your evening. Detective, 1 moment, please. Yes? That was a most remarkable deduction. Perhaps you'd be kind enough to tell me your name. Ah, it quite slipped my mind. You have been talking with the one and only Herlock Sholmes. I see. Well, I'm Kazuma Asogi. I'm a student on my way to Great Britain. Pleased to make your acquaintance, Mr. Asogi. Oh, and before I forget. Yes? I feel I should warn you. Live cargo is strictly forbidden on this vessel. So you would do well to conceal the stowaway currently lying low under your bed as carefully as possible. Oh, under the bed? I bid you farewell then, Mr. Asogi. He's uncovered our secret. I suppose I should have expected nothing less of a great detective. Now then, when did you move in under the bed? I thought we'd had it when you opened the wardrobe door. Oh well, it was thanks to that split-second chance you engineered. That I what? You distracted him for a moment, remember? When you suggested that he investigated the other cabins instead? Yes, he turned to look towards the corridor, didn't he? Well, I couldn't see what he was doing, of course. But I thought to myself, it's now or never, and the next thing I knew, I was under the bed. You really know how to give me a scare, don't you? Anyway, what's all this about the rib steaks, eh? Sorry about that. I've just been so hungry. Ever since we left Japan, stuck in that tiny wardrobe. Well, you should know. You've been splitting all your meals with me. You must be starving too, surely. Right on cue. And there was that power cut before, wasn't there? For about 10 minutes. So it was then. I caught a whiff of the most delicious smell. And I thought to myself, it's now or never. And the next thing I knew, I had the steaks in my hands. This man just can't help getting himself into trouble. Well, alright, you were hungry, but 3 steaks? Thanks to you, 3 crewmen are going to go without tonight, I imagine. No, it was just the one. What? I only took 1 rib steak from the kitchen, that's all. But I don't understand. Hey, I'm not that selfish. If I'd stolen 3 steaks, I'd at least have tossed one your way. I'm not your pet dog. Well, in that case, who stole the other 2? Ah, do you think... Could there be a ghost on board? Meat-loving ghost? There can only have been a single bone in the wardrobe when Ryan Isuke moved to hide under the bed. Yep. Which means that the other 2 bones can only have been put there by one very flesh and blood person. Ha ha ha. What's so funny? We're on a haunted ghost ship. A great detective. Or a great mischief maker. Either way, I think I'd like to spend a little more time getting to know that man. The great Herlock Sholmes. Ah, here we go again. Every time we visit here, the atmosphere in this place seems to get more and more overbearing. Just think, we could be at home with Mr. Sholmes and Iris having a nice, cozy breakfast. We have to have a duty to report the outcome of the case, especially since we're guests here in Britain. Yeah, but, like, can't the prosecutor just do that? Can't the judge just do that? So I'm afraid this visit couldn't have been avoided. I suppose not, but is there even anyone here? You could hear a pin drop in this place. It's too solemn for its own good. It's very quiet, isn't it? The only sound is the ticking of the great clock as it keeps perfect time. Tick. What was that, I wonder? The usual comforting sound of the clock seems to have been joined by a less comforting shuffling sound today. You're right. Something's disturbing the rhythmical ticking. It sounds rather like an unfit middle-aged man running from pillar to post, clumsily. What do you call an unfit? Oh, Inspector Gregson, what are you doing here? What am I, Isn't it flamin' obvious? 58 seconds remaining, Inspector. We have to talk later, sunshine. We'll have okay. Good morning, Lord Strongheart. Wow, he's really looking fiercely at his pocket watch today. And good morning to you. Business so early in the day? Yes, well, I mean, it's about the other day. We are to deliver our report, Lord Strongheart, as our dealings with Mr. Natsume are now over. Ah, yes, the little Japanese man. I've already cast my eyes over Von Zeke's report. I must say, the outcome surprised me. I thank you for a job well done. You are too kind, my lord. It's not here. It's not here. It's not there. It's not over there either. I hope you don't mind me asking, but what exactly is the inspector doing? He's been harrying around between the bookshelves, looking beside himself with worry. He's looking for a particular work. The Lion's Pride. Now, there's an all-too-familiar title. Oh. Now, that's an all-too-familiar title. I've heard it was a popular tale, so I obtained a copy from the rental library. However, I wasn't able to maintain my interest, so I soon cast it aside. I happened to notice a vacant spot on my shelves at the time, so I duly stowed the book there. Unfortunately, I no longer remember where that was. Nope, not there either. Come on, where are you lying hiding? The book is due back today, so I asked Gregson to locate it for me with his investigative prowess. Inside 5 minutes. I must say, I've never seen anyone working so hard to find something. He's like a man possessed. Ah, yes, that's because his month's salary is staked upon the outcome. At whose instigation? Let me guess, this stone-faced lord. And the 5-minute time limit? What's the significance of that? There is none. Just my vulgar, mischievous spirit showing itself, I'm afraid. Oh, by your own admission. I can't. My feet are killing me. 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. Time's up, Inspector. Which means that next month you will work unpaid and have no days off. No days off. There really was just so many books here. It's overwhelming. For some, perhaps. I've purchased every book, new or old, on the subject of law from all over the globe. Wouldn't have believed it a few short decades ago. A place like this couldn't have existed. What do you mean, Inspector? When I was a lad, no one ever dreamed of buying books. Oh, I see. Western books are such luxury items, I suppose, with their leather covers and fancy bindings. No, that's not it. Oh? There was a tax on paper, see? Oh, on paper? Yeah, I mean, it was abolished about 30 years back now, but it used to be the case. There was a tax levied on any kind of paper. So obviously that meant most folk couldn't afford to buy any books at all. Ah, so that's why places like the rental library you mentioned before came into existence, Lord Strongheart. Indeed, vestiges of the paper tax system, you could say. The general public consider books as items for hire. London is home to the vast lending library of some 3.5 million books. You couldn't hope to read all of that, even if you were reincarnated 10,000 times. Even I would choose to rent a book rather than purchase it if I knew I would read it infrequently. The subject of tax has actually surprised us already in the last few days. It came up in Mr. Natsume's trial. It seems that the window in his room was filled in due to some kind of window tax. That would be true. Fortunately, the window tax was abolished here some 40 years ago. Sadly, in the East End in particular, many windowless houses remain. Britons always had a bit of a thing for tax and stuff. Whatever they can tax, they tax. Sugar, salt, tea, coffee. You name it. Candles. Beards. Wait, sorry, what was that last one? Did you say beards? Yep, the beard tax. Never heard of it? Never. Why should people have to pay money just because they let their facial hair grow? You may well ask. I suppose it's because it makes them look self-important. The Naruhodos will have to do a strict family policy of no facial hair, I think. You can relax. The beard tax was confined to the annals of history long ago. Even so, it's clearly something the British really love. Paying taxes, I mean. Paying them. You got that back to front, sunshine. But you can't deny you've had a lot of funny taxes over the years. You never find anything like that in Japan. Would you, Miss Susato? In actual fact, I'm afraid to say that you would, Mr. Naruhodo. What? No, you don't mean... Surely there's never been a window tax in Japan. No, but there have been similarly obscure taxes. For example, in the Edo period, there was a frontage tax. What was that? It was a tax not on windows, but on the entrance to properties. The larger a property's entrance was, the greater the tax that was levied on it. Even today, some mansions survive with extremely narrow entrances due to that old form of taxation. I had no idea. So you Japanese are as twisted as us Brits. But you never had a beard tax. I mean, that's really... We never had a beard tax. I mean, that's really going a step too far. Well, no, that's true. I'm not aware of any taxes or beards, at least. On beards. What do you mean, at least? Taxes on the other hair, the other kinds of hair. Well, rather than tax them, the shogunate did once prohibit them outright. The ruling class prohibited beards. It was called the Great Beard Prohibition. It was an Edo period edict. But why did the powers that be want to ban beards? Because it makes people look self-important? Just an idea. It would seem that rulers in the East and the West have had very similar ideas over the years. There have been other unusual taxes in our history, even in our current Meiji period. There have. For example, though it was before either of us were born, there was a rabbit tax. There was a tax on those adorable fluffy creatures like the ones that make mochi sweets on the moon. What? Yes, and it was an extremely large tax too. The government demanded extraordinary sums of money. This just gets stranger and stranger. What was the reason for that bizarre tax then? Well, after Japan opened its doors to the world, there was an unprecedented rabbit boom in the Meiji capital. A boom? Yes, keeping rabbits became hugely popular, and new species were traded at exorbitant prices. People were even swindled out of all their money on exotically colored rabbits. Like colored chicks, I suppose? Hard to imagine, though. Rabbits are so timid and quiet. Wouldn't have thought one could bankrupt you. So in response to this worrying social vogue, the government imposed a rabbit tax. This is like the triple tax. I suppose they couldn't just ignore the problem. And it worked, because the rabbit boom came to an abrupt end. 6 years later, the tax was abolished. Well, I hate to say it about my own country, but Japan is strange. But there's more! After the rabbit tax is abolished, and of course, society reacted by launching straight into a second rabbit boom. Oh dear, the government didn't think that one went through, did they? Your ideas about the world are very much altered by the position you hold in society. If you are responsible for the running of the country, you will feel the need to raise revenue keenly. Without a stable taxation system, the whole country would go down the drain. Well, yes, I suppose so, but some of these taxes... That's precisely why ministers of state use their wiles to invent new and novel ways of taxing the public. Novel ways? Tell me, Mr. Naruhodo, if you were one of my country's statesmen... Me, a British statesman? Yes, what novel tax would you impose? Pray, give us something truly original. Inside 5 seconds. What? Oh, They would say tea, but the problem is that that's already been mentioned. Think of something that everyone uses, Mr. Naruhodo, and really squeeze every penny out of the population. That's quite the intense stare. I'm very glad Susato-san isn't in charge. Your time is up. So, what's your answer? Well... Air, maybe. Yes, how about air? An air tax, you say? Oh, well done, Mr. Naruhodo. Truly novel and fiendish idea. Well, everyone has to breathe, so while the population is inhaling air, my government is inhaling money. Blind me, you're a tyrant at heart, eh? A somewhat radical solution to a country's revenue problems, but sadly not an original one. No, you mean to say... It's like the carbon tax, which is very much like an air tax. Surely not. You mean a tax on air has been imposed in the past? It was last century. The finance minister of our neighbor, France, proposed it. What? If I ever go to for a visit, I'm holding my breath. Unsurprisingly, it was strongly opposed by the public and soon scrapped. The minister didn't last long either. Oh dear. Although clearly that would have been an untenable situation, the public at large are forced to be reckoned with. Don't I know it? How about you, Inspector? What tax would you impose? Let me see. My first thought is a tax on objections. Sorry? Been hearing far too many of them recently in court. There's a particular lawyer I have in mind as it happens. So I think an objection tax would be very handy. Good to see you don't allow your personal feuds to influence your work in public office. I reckon 5 pence for every objection raised would be about right. Most amusing proposal, Gregson. Most unamusing proposal, my lord. Well then, I think it's your turn now. Sorry, my turn for what? Why, what else? To locate my missing copy of The Lion's Pride. Oh. It's on one of the shelves in this room. Of that I am certain. Now, I shall give you 10 minutes. And let's stake your student stipend on it, whom? Fail to find the book and you forfeit next month's payment. Objection! Your time starts now. Oh, and one more thing. I believe you just said the word objection. Kindly leave your 5 pence over there before you begin combing the shelves. This tax is going to be the death of me. How, then, do Japanese visual novel writers did Britain get known for taxes? Good morning, Iris. Good morning, Mr. Sholmes. It's like an Ohio thing. He said she would be speaking English because she's in Britain speaking to British people. Morning, Susie. I'll get breakfast on the table for us all. Mr. Sholmes. Morning. Come now, why the long face? Oh, I'm sorry. The thing is, I just had a rather strange envelope posted under my door this morning, with some rather strange things inside. What strange things? Oh, what is it, Runo? Do I catch the scent of mystery in the air? Nothing so exciting, I'm afraid, Iris. It was just 5 orange pips. I can't imagine what it could possibly... What? Orange pips, Mr. Naruhodo? And 5 of them? What's the matter with you? Well, that's a bit of an overreaction, isn't it? An overreaction, Mr. Naruhodo, you don't understand. It's a warning. I notice of imminent danger. To your life. What? To my life? What's the meaning of all this, Mr. Sholmes? My dear fellow, why do you make such an inquiry of me? Because the name of the cinder was written on the envelope, and it was yours. Oh. You're right, Runo. It says sent by Sholmes, envoy of hell. Ha 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 ha. So my little ploy has been exposed. Well, so be it. Cast your mind back, if you will, Mr. Naruhodo, to the time of our dining last night. Yes, Miss Susato cooked Japanese food for us. Indeed. In particular, you may recall the final noramaki sushi roll that I was about to savor. That is, before you swooped in with your clacking chopsticks and flinched it from under my nose. I assume because you left it that you didn't want it. I left it, my dear fellow, because I had planned to enjoy it as my very last mouthful. Surely you must have noted my intent by the subtle dilation of my right pupil. Perhaps a clearer sign would be helpful next time. Just an idea. In summary, the post you received earlier is a notice of impending revenge. You should be quaking in your boots. Really? Because I went straight out into the garden and planted them. I'm hopeful they may grow some exotic fruit. There's no point sending a notice of impending revenge if the person you send it to doesn't know what it is. Well, I knew, of course, because I've read this book. The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes. On sale now in all major London bookshops and receiving rave reviews. Yes, of course, it's finally been published, hasn't it? I hear it's selling very well. It is, 12 short stories in 1 volume. I've learned a lifetime spending money already. Okay. And it has further bolstered my name. In fact, only the other day, a Bohemian king sought to engage my services. Really? That's extraordinary. Of course, the gentleman persisted with some pretense about being a fishmonger for the duration. But only a fool would presume to be able to deceive my eyes with such a charade. So how'd you know that he was the king then? Why, there is no mystery, my dear fellow. A distinct smell of fish accompanied the man's lowly apparel. And though he tried to hide it, the left side of his mustache quivered with a quite manifest manner. Oh, Mr. Sholmes, that's simply brilliant. I think he was Gregson. No. Having neatly resolved the case for the man, I was sent a quantity of fresh cod as a mark of his appreciation. Okay, so that was not Gregson then. I was thinking fish, fish and chips and a mustache. I think perhaps you shouldn't discount the possibility that he actually was a fishmonger. Is that... Can anyone else smell burning? Yes, you're right. And look, smoke. I think maybe... Fire. There's a fire, everyone. Really? A fire? We must all leave at once. Everyone out of the building. No, wait. I have to go back to my room first. Are you deranged? If you're not asphyxiated by the smoke, the flames will burn you to death. But my Daruma doll, I can't let my Daruma burn. It means too much. Drat, sorry, but I'm going to make a dash for it upstairs. Oh, Runo, you're so funny. This is no time for jokes, Iris. Go quickly, get out of here. But there is no fire. Is there, Hurley? Huh? What a delight to see that flay enacted in the flesh. I wouldn't have dared to dream I should be so lucky. Miss Susato. Indeed, it was a ploy. Devilishly engineered by my puckish spirit. It was all a trick, but why? It is a simple experiment of the mind, Mr. Naruhodo. When his life is threatened, a fellow is compelled instinctively to protect that property for which he attaches matching importance. And after your own life, Runo, the most important thing to you seems to be your Daruma doll. Let's not dwell on that, shall we, Iris? So you knew all along, Miss Susato, that it was a trick? Yes, of course. The very place described in this book. The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes. On sale now in all major London bookshops and receiving rave reviews. Not again. I've used that device quite satisfactorily in the past to solve a case. Oh yes, it was a great success, wasn't it? But then it became something of a habit, didn't it? You started yelling fire at every crime scene. In the end, people started to pay no attention to you at all. Yes, that's true. There was a time when I was known as the Sholmes who cried wolf. I think there's a lesson to be learned in there somewhere. But sadly, my little ploy failed to yield results this time. Iris was utterly unmoved. What do you mean? Well, I was anticipating that Iris would immediately expose her secret hiding place. The location of the nest egg she must have cached somewhere in this room. Nest egg? You think Iris has some secret savings? Why, naturally, the book is selling like hotcakes after all. It is a simple deduction indeed to conclude that the profits must be concealed here within these walls. Oh, Mr. Sholmes, are you in need of money? Oh, I bet I know what it is. It's that new microscope that's gone on sale, isn't it, Hurley? What else? I have such a strong desire to own one, yet my purse is 1 pound too light. And as no offer of a loan has been forthcoming, I have been forced to resort to an alternative stratagem. Hehe, sorry Hurley, but I'm not falling for that. Not coming from the Sholmes who cried wolf. How vexing. You really shouldn't be trying to steal a 10-year-old savings, you know. My book is full of little tricks like that, you see. The armory of the great detective. Except that in this case, both the orange pips and the fake fire fell a little flat, didn't they? Oh, I have plenty more tricks up my sleeve. Take, for example, the case of the Boscombe Valley mystery. Already filled with a dread from the title. It is a tale of extraordinary skill on the part of the great detective, the skill of tracking. Tracking? When I arrived on the scene of the crime in the eponymous valley, there was footprints everywhere. But my eye was immediately drawn to one set in particular. Oh, Mr. Sholmes, your detective instincts are truly remarkable. As you know, my dear madame, no detail, no matter how small, escapes the scrutiny of these eyes. So I tracked my quarry, following the trail of his footsteps all the way to the man's place of residence. It led you directly to the culprit's house? What a triumph. You misunderstand. It led me directly to my own house, my dear fellow. Huh? For the footprints were, in the final analysis, Those made by my own shoes. Hurley had left here from Boscombe Valley as soon as he received the telegram about the case you see. And then he followed his own trail straight back here to Baker Street. Ah. Now, Iris, please, you make it sound almost humdrum, but I assure you, it is no easy feat. Tracking of this nature. The skill possessed only by the great Sherlock Holmes. You're right, it really is extraordinary. Quite so, extraordinary is the word, and let it be the last on the subject. Anyway, needless to say, I subsequently went on to solve the case with various other deductions. Yes, it's the various other deductions that I'm interested in. Oh, well, you shall have to read the book then. I'm sure Iris has printed it with her usual flourish. Oh, absolutely, I've put an ingenious spin on the great detective's exploits. It must have been very ingenious to make this man sound even remotely credible as a detective. Wait, does it smell like something burning again? I've had enough devilment for one day, Mr. Sholmes. Put your puckish spirit to bed. I assure you, this has nothing to do with me or my spirit. What? Oh no, the smoke is getting thicker. You mean it's not a trick this time? There really is a... Fire! There's a fire, everyone. Ah. Miss Susato, where are you going? Stand aside, Mr. Naruhodo. Easy, Mr. Sholmes. What are you? Smash. Mr. Sholmes? Why you just chuck that bust of Napoleon on the floor? Oh, look at that. And amongst all the broken porcelain. Coins. Sovereigns, in fact. Worth whole pound each. Come, everyone. We must leave at once. Evacuate the building. Hehehe. You fell for it, Hurley. Look, line and sinker. Hook, line, and sinker. Wait, you mean... Iris. I certainly wouldn't have guessed that's where you'd hidden it. Do you mean to say that this smoke was... My own puckish spirit needs to come out and play sometimes too, you know. What? Of course. I know what it is, Iris. It's the indoor herb garden set that went on sale last week, isn't it? That's what you're after. I want one so desperately, but I'm 4 pounds short. And even though you told me you didn't have any money to spare before, I knew you had a secret nest egg somewhere in this room. You're outwitted me again. You recall, you really shouldn't let yourself be outwitted by a 10-year-old child, you know. So thank you for the loan early. Oh, but wait. What's the matter? Where's Susie? She disappeared. Oh yes, that's right. She ran up the stairs before, didn't she? Oh, what are you still doing in here? We have to evacuate. It won't be long before the fire... Sorry, Susie. Children will get up to mischief once in a while, you know, but it's all perfectly harmless. Harmless, maybe, but oh so devious. Oh well, at least nobody was hurt. Apart from Napoleon and my secret hoard. Now tell us, Miss Susato, what is it that you went so fleet-footedly to fetch? Sorry? Oh, no, nothing. It's just... No, this is nothing. Susie, that's your notebook detailing all of Runo's trials, isn't it? It's bulging at the seams. What? A testament to the various people you've helped over the past months. Miss Susato, Well, I am your judicial assistant, after all. I would do anything to ensure the safety of these records, even risk my life if necessary. I mean, it's very important to me. It's like a diary of everything we've achieved together. I'm getting teary-eyed now. Yes, in stark contrast to a certain someone who would have fetched his Daruma doll, I must say. Uh... hello? I'm back. Oh, hello, Mr. Naruhodo. Do you have a good outing? Hi, Runo. What's the matter? Your eyes are as big as dinner plates. Iris, I wasn't expecting to see you here. I've just made some tea, Mr. Naruhodo. Would you like a cup? A cup or two? Yes, some definite tea. Haha. Alright, Runo, what's going on? You're acting extremely strangely. What, me? No, not at all. I'm as normal can be. Normally tea itself, see, not again, Mr. Naruhodo. Sorry, not what? Not what again? What do you mean, Susie? Got drugs or something? Whenever he goes out on his own lately, he always seems to come back with this peculiar new purchase. Peculiar? Peculiar? What's peculiar about the things I've bought? You seem to think about anything British. You seem to think that anything British is a curio you simply must have. You keep buying items of bric-a-brac even though you don't know what they are. Well, there are rather a lot of bric-a-brac shops and pawnbrokeries and the like around here. It's when I've seen the Lord Stronghearts I've been to Lord Stronghearts to give my weekly report. I'm always so nervous beforehand. On the way home, I just find myself in those shops and... Yes, alright, I can't deny it. I've bought something. You're right, you can't deny it, because your eyes are whiter than ever. You really ought to put up a warning sign about them. They're bigger than some potholes around here. It's hard to resist things in a bric-a-brac shop. It's all so cheap. Mr. Schultz has given me lots of useful advice about how to pick out the real bargains. You must remember, Runo, that Hurley likes to have fun with you. Take his advice with a big pinch of salt. You get what you pay for, really. Well, that's true. That thing he told me was a pot stand wasn't a pot stand at all. But I never have guessed it was a collapsible top hat. No, and I never have guessed that you could fill up this once empty room so quickly. Honestly, it's overflowing with things we don't need now. I mean, look at those scales. Not once have you weighed something on them. I know, but ever since I first stood at the defense's bench in court. I don't know why, but I just really wanted my own little set of scales. Let's see then, Mr. Naruhodo, what have you come home with today? Oh, well, it's, one of these. What is it? It looks all dry and shriveled up in a ball. Really, Mr. Naruhodo? What is it? It's a sea anemone. Anemone? Yes, I mean, I know it doesn't look like it at the moment. It's all shriveled up, like you said. Aren't sea anemones living creatures, the ones that dance about on the seabed? Yes, exactly, the ones that dance about on the seabed. Oh, they sell sea anemones in bric-a-brac shops here in Britain? I don't know whether they normally do or not, but I do know that I bought one today. But why, Runo? Well, yes. For the aquarium, of course. Aquarium? I don't know that word. Well, according to the shopkeeper, keeping sea creatures in tanks was hugely popular here in London before. Oh yes, some people have some beautiful fish in seawater tanks, it's true. Having an aquarium became popular because the old glass tax was abolished. There is it again, roaring its ugly head, the subject of taxation. It was a real craze for a while. Everyone in London had one. For a while? Yes, it didn't last long. People's enthusiasm soon waned. It's just far too much work to be changing the seawater regularly in a city like London. Never a truer word said, I'm sure. You'd think people might have realized that from the start, really, wouldn't you? Anyway, that was long before I was born. So now everyone jokes that there's an unloved aquarium covered in dust in every attic in the capital. And it's true, there's one in this attic too. When I told the man in the bric-a-brac shop about it, he had these words of wisdom. That's why this is the age of the sea anemone, and that made a lot of sense to me. It made sense to you, did it? Varuno, this anemone is completely dried up. You just have to soak it in water overnight and it'll be as good as new. That's what the man said. I'm not sure that it works in the same way as dried wakame seaweed, Mr. Naruhodo. Once I've saved some money, I'm going to buy some prawns to keep this little fellow company. Oh, how exciting. Your office will be teeming with life. Will it really? Britain is a funny country, though. I mean, a sea anemone craze. Well, they say people in glass houses about comments like that here, Mr. Naruhodo. Don't forget, there was a very curious rabbit craze in our own country not so very long ago. A mortifying chapter that people will try to erase from the history books 100 years from now, I'm sure. You know, there was another craze as well before the aquarium one. Have you heard of Wardian cases? Wardy, what? No, I've definitely never heard of them. They were little glazed cases for growing plants indoors, I believe. Oh, I see, for plant lovers to raise their favorite tropical plants. That's right, like different types of ferns. Ferns? Do you mean those rather dull plants with lots of fronds and leaves? They're not dull at all. Ferns are lovely plants. I think people wanted to recreate the exotic foliage of the tropics in their own homes. So they grew ferns? I mean, ferns, sea anemones, Londoners certainly have a knack for the obscure. Well, thinking about it... My grandfather loved the moss on his bonsai. He looked after it better than the trees. It seems like the more obscure something is, the more it interests people. Maybe. Anyway, the Wardian case craze didn't last very long. Now most of those little glass cases are just gathering dust, I think. But haven't I seen one in your room, Iris? Oh, very observant of you, Susie. Yes, that's right. Mine's certainly not gathering dust. I grow tropical herbs in it. Well, Mr. Naruhodo, I really must ask you to stop all the frivolous buying of strange things. Yes, all right, sorry. It's just that, well, think about Mr. Sholmes' room. He has all sorts of peculiar trinkets lying around. Oh, well, yes, that's true, and they seem to be growing in number. Recently I noted a blowpipe, a few beryl crystals, a set in a twisted piece of gold, a gold-rimmed pince-nez. I spotted a small gramophone recorder in there the other day, so I slipped it onto the gramophone. There was just a whispering voice saying, Norbury, and nothing more. What could it possibly be about? Those are all mementos of cases that Hurley solved over the years. Exactly, that's what I want to recreate in here. Just that sort of atmosphere. A room full of meaningful trinkets, each with their own unique history, you mean? Yes, that. I knew you'd understand, Miss Susato. But, Mr. Naruhodo, none of these things you bought for the room have any connection with any of our cases. Oh, don't they? Well, for example, take that splendid but rather weather-beaten top hat. That wasn't used as evidence in any of the cases we worked on, was it? Oh, so you have two top hats if you count the collapsible one as well? No, the collapsible one is a pot stand, as far as I'm concerned anyway. But the other day, when we were in court, they were everywhere, weren't they? Top hats, I mean. Well, here in Britain, of course, they're the mark of a true gentleman, so it's hardly surprising. If a man isn't wearing a top hat, that when he ventures out of doors, he'll be looked down upon. Gosh, it's been very strict rules, doesn't it? It has very strict rules, doesn't it? The English Gentleman's Code. I've been wondering how I'd look in a top hat recently. After all, my university uniform is black as well, so I think it would be very in keeping. Oh, what a good idea. Go on then, Runo, try it on. I don't unlock a new outfit. Ha 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 ha. Lesson here, I suppose, is that the juxtaposition of student and gentleman is just too strange and wrong. Well, I'd rather it didn't suit me anyway. I mean, these hats are ridiculous. I'd be willing to bet every foreigner who sees one of these for the first time thinks exactly the same thing. Why is that man wearing a chimney on his head? It's like, not just that. What about those wigs with the white curly hair? People in glass houses remember Runo. What do you mean? Well, what about Japanese cone mage top knots? Chone mage top knots. Those haircuts are the height of ridiculousness. True. At least you can take a hat off. Once you have a cone mage, it's crone your head for good. Or cron mage, it's cron. I'm willing to bet every foreigner who sees a crone mage for the first time thinks exactly the same thing. Why is that man wearing a cannon on his head? I suppose that's what it means to have different cultures, isn't it? On the subject of hats, the one Mr. Sholmes always wears is really, really strange, don't you think? I beg your pardon, Mr. Naruhodo. That's what a thing to say. That hat is the very essence of Mr. Sholmes. Yes, without his deerstalker, the great detective would be unrecognizable. It's called a deerstalker? That's a surprisingly swanky name. It's the hat of a hunter, just like the flat cap. I made up my mind long ago to visit Regent Street and buy one for myself. I'm not sure it's going to fit over your hair. Well, I think it's perfect for a great detective who stalks his criminal quarry. What do you think is strange about it, anyway? Well, you've seen it. It has two brims, one at the front and one at the back. Why would you need two brims on a hat? Surely one on the front is enough, no? Don't get sunburned on the back. One moment, please. If you ask me, it's just Mr. Sholmes' madcap personality coming through. I bet it's so that he doesn't have to think about which way round to put it on or something like that. Mr. Sholmes does not have a madcap personality. He always has a clear head. Deer stalkers are made for hunters who had to hide in thickets when they were stalking their prey. The brim at the back was designed to stop the stalks of plants scratching the back of their necks. Oh, so that's the reason. Thank you, Iris, for educating us. Mr. Sholmes doesn't spend a lot of time in thickets, though, does he? Well, no, that's true. I'm telling you, it's just his impetuous personality. That's my theory, and I'm sticking to it, firmly. Ah. Here you all are. Oh, good afternoon, Mr. Sholmes. I've not long since made some tea, Mr. Sholmes. Would you like a cup? I see you've come at a good time, Mr. Sato. Thank you. Now, I have something I should like you all to see. I've designed myself a brand new great detective's hat. What? There's a brim at the front and at the back, and at both sides. 4 brims in total. Your observation is quite correct, my dear madame. I'm a busy man, you see. But with this hat, whichever way I put it on, I shall always have it pointing the correct way. Oh. With my previous hat, I could, in an impetuous moment, wear it erroneously with the brims on either side. That's impressively clumsy, I would say. Especially if you always put the hat on with the same motion, where you put your hand, like, clamshelled around the brim. And I must regretfully say, I think your madcap theory was correct, after all. But really, Mr. Sholmes, with brims on all four sides like that, wouldn't it just be better to wear a top hat instead? Ah yes, and however you put it on, you'd have a brim all around. What? So true, so true. How could I have been so blinkering to this fact until now? Well, fortunately, I happen to have two top hats here. If you just lift the top pot off of it, you're welcome to try that one there. Indeed I shall, my good fellow. Much obliged. Oh dear, Hurley, it looks terrible. More terrible than I could possibly have imagined. No, that's not good. Maybe it's because of your long face paired with the tall hat, it just doesn't work. Well, I think it's very nice, Mr. Sholmes, even if it will have the whole world in fits of laughter. Arg! I should never have meddled with it. Give me a deerstalker forevermore. And give me my regulation university hat forevermore. There's still a hope that you'll graduate one day, Mr. Naruhodo. Don't give up. That one seemed long to me. Oh no, not this. So, Mr. Natsume, are you really returning home to Japan? Yes, indeed I am. Everything is arranged already. It'll be sad to see you go. And after Runo worked so hard to prove your innocence as well. What a shame. It feels like it was all a wasted effort. Don't say that. I know what you're suggesting. Now calm down, Mr. Natsume. It's all fine, really. You're in good company here, see? Here, sir. If you fear the Reaper, you needn't hide the fact. I'm a proud citizen of the Empire of Japan. I'm not a scaredy cat. Talking of cats, Mr. Sholmes just casually threw one among the pigeons there. A man like me belongs to Japan, not here. That's what I have come to realize. I wonder. A mustache such as yours is eminently suited to London, I would say. There goes Mr. Sholmes throwing another cat in. The moment I arrived in this city, I noticed. Everyone in London laughs at me behind my back, like hyenas. Hysterical hyenas, ha-haing horribly. I'm sure that's not true, Mr. Natsume. Oh, but it is. Whenever I turn around and peer over the dog-filled streets, all I see is foreigners everywhere. Well, there's you, Runo, and Susie in here, so that's 3 foreigners out of 5 people. I take your point. Only the other day, I was taking a stroll through the fog as usual, when a young man approached me from ahead. He was pale and gaunt, his back arched like a cat. Observing his wretchedness moved me so deeply. Oh, I thought to myself, I'm not the only one suffering in this hell. But do you know what? Can you imagine? It was just my own reflection in a shop window. A stunning, stinging, stupefying surprise. Don't forget, slap in the face. Everyone started laughing at me. Gentlemen thereabout, ladies passing by. Everyone, even the man in the shop window. Ah yes, and a certain great detective would like to be included among the mirthful. Mr. Sholmes is great going for Soseki-san today. He's really going for Soseki-san today. Well, I for one think you're a very handsome man, Mr. Natsume. There, did you hear that? This 10-year-old girl thinks you're handsome. Isn't that wonderful? That makes me feel suspiciously warm inside. I look genuinely delighted. The point is, we Japanese are humble and modest. Studying on foreign soil, surrounded by foreign people. How could anyone possibly enjoy that? No one could, it's impossible. If you're a genuine Japanese. If you say so. Actually, it would appear that there is someone. A Japanese man who studied in a foreign country and seems to have thrived on the experience. There is? Mr. Ogai Mori. I believe he studied in Germany. Mr. Mori, pray tell us more of the fellow. Well, today he is a very successful author in Japan. Oh, I've heard of him. He's the professor who wrote My Hime, isn't he? My Hime? I suppose in English the title would be Dancing Queen, maybe. Oh, I see. A tale of a woman who waltzed her way through the world, perhaps? You really need to make up a silly translation, you know. You didn't make up a silly translation, you know. It's already officially called The Dancing Girl in English. It seems Mr. Mori greatly enjoyed his time in Germany. He became close with a local lady while he was there. Close, you say? With a local lady? Compatriots' criminally contradictory conduct. Well, I suppose your experience of studying abroad depends to a large extent on your character. As they say, many men, many minds. Mr. Mori has an open mind, Mr. Natsume a closed one. Possibly a slight black and white view, do you think, Mr. Sholmes? Well, anyway. If that's how you feel about being abroad, why did you choose to study here? Wasn't it to further our nation's understanding of the English language or something that's silly and shoehorned in? Yes, that's right. So what were you doing in Japan before you came to Great Britain, then? I was a school teacher, of English, of course. A bit cursory, perhaps, but I've managed to discover some information about Mr. Natsume's teaching days. That's just a little outside the field of law, isn't it, Miss Susato? Well, let me pose you a question, Mr. Naruhodo. If you had to translate the English phrase, I love you, into Japanese, what would it become? That's easy. I shiteru, or suki desu. Okay, that... Would that be pronounced I shiteru? Because I just realized, like, des is des, right? You don't, it's not desu. Desu is what you say when you're trying to make fun of foreigners trying to speak Japanese. Anyway, it's like that ooh at the end just might mean that you just put a consonant sound at the end of the word without actually putting that final vowel. Anyway. Wrong. According to Mr. Natsume's teachings, at least. What? Would you like to explain, Mr. Natsume? Yes, of course. Your research was very thorough. I always used to tell my students that we Japanese don't express ourselves that way. Rather, we might say... Tsuki ga tsuki ga kirei desu ne. My dear Mr. Natsume, I must interject. Tsuki ga kirei desu ne would translate, the moon is beautiful, isn't it? I know that. The point is that we Japanese are reticent when it comes to expressing our emotions. We prefer to show our feelings of adoration, our tsuki, by appreciating the beauty of the moon. The tsuki. Using the tsuki to express suki. It's an amusing play on words, I see. No, or in language you might understand better. Bad Sholmes. It's not a play on words. It's subtle, it's humble, it's fleeting, it's beautiful, it's art. Isn't it just being shy? My dear fellow, the foreign dancing girl will forever be out of your reach with such an attitude. Imagine how the great Mr. Mori would act. He would win the lady's heart in a flash with a well-placed and unrestrained I love you. That's smooth, Mr. Mori. Am I destined to live in his shadow forever? Just what sort of man is he in that imagination of yours? The fact is, I just can't settle in this foggy London town with all its foreign inhabitants. I've lost count of the number of different lodgings I've tried before I found myself here. As it happens, I even lived on Baker Street at one time. No, really? A Sow scholar lived near there. A man by the name of William James Craig. Is this a character in Sherlock Holmes? I wouldn't know because I haven't read that enough Sherlock Holmes. His knowledge of Sow is unsurpassed. He's been a great inspiration to me over the... Forgive me my interjection, but am I supposed to be familiar with Sow as you speak? It's Shakespeare, of course. Shakespeare, but in Japanese you write it as Sao. It's a phonetic representation using kanji characters, so England is Iglis. Okay, I don't know if kanji characters, maybe back in this era, they would call them katakana today, right? England is Iglis. Correct. And America is America. Come to think of it, we use the same character as re in the one word Reese. One word and Reese in another. Talk about confusing. So Shakespeare is Sao in Japanese. Presumably the saw is a brutal attempt at the first shaw, or shay, in which case, where is the spear? It's never thought of that. I never thought of that. We only have an O left. Which could, even in the most charitable interpretation, only be the brutal attempt at old man. It seems to me that whoever had the job of deciding on the characters for his name got bored very early on. Complete kanji character catastrophe. So then, on to the burning question. What about me? How do you write my name? Sorry? Sherlock Holmes, my dear fellow. There must be a Japanese character for my name. It would be nice to actually, added the actual Japanese character in here. Like, the actual katakana. Or the predecessors to the katakana. But they don't, they're just putting Romanizations. Oh dear, I am sorry, Mr. Sholmes, but none exist that I am aware of. What? Am I really nothing to you Japanese? No, they just write your name in Romanji. In that case, it's a matter of paramount importance. You must construct my name in kanji at once. Oh, well, we could use a kanji that's pronounced so to start with, and then use one more to give so... I think that would be alright, Mr. Sholmes. So. Because otherwise it would be like showroomiss, which doesn't sound much like Sholmes. But that's almost the same as Sao, isn't it? Yes, you employed the dreaded O. I don't want people to confuse me with an old man who died centuries ago. I'm sure the world's greatest literary figure would rather not be confused with you either. Well, the world's greatest detective is still youthful and full of vigor, so how about there's no, just the DS doesn't work though. So Hansome, but it can't be Hanzome. It has to be Hansome. And I think So isn't really a character, so it's more like Hansume. Oh yes, that sounds wonderful. I'm sure everyone will be calling you that 100 years from now. How can she say that with a straight face? What about me then, Iris? Me then, Iris, perhaps Aihime, since the second character doesn't seem to matter. That'd be Aihime. Aihime? Oh yes, Princess of Love. That's an adorable name for you, Iris. Stop, please. With a name like that, Mr. Mori is likely to turn up at any moment and rashly declare I love you. This Mori-san has become quite a character in Saseki-san's mind. And to you, Mr. Naruhodo, might I venture Kurobozu? Kurobozu. As a fitting name for you, as in the Dark Monk. You realize that his name is already Japanese, don't you? Oh, that's very good. It describes you perfectly, Runo. So you think I'll be wearing this black varsity uniform for the rest of my days, do you? But Mr. Naruhodo already has a Japanese name. I don't believe he needs another. Well, anyway. We're talking about your life before here in London, weren't you? We Mr. Natsume? You should just get out and have fun. The landlady has said as much to me too. Mrs. Garadeb. But it wasn't fun at all. It was frightful. Whatever do you mean? A cycle incident. An incident on a bicycle? Oh yes, kind of think of it. The bent wheel. There's an old bicycle parked just outside, isn't there? It's in a sorry state, though. I tried to say no to her, but she insisted I took it for a ride. Perhaps my pronunciation was wrong. So I took my life in my hands and attempted to ride the steel spiderweb stallion to a nearby park. I really don't think there's anything wrong with your pronunciation, Mr. Natsume. Joanne Garadeb just isn't the kind of woman to take no for an answer. If you're going to die, you might as well die in beautiful surroundings. So the park was my first thought. After a whole day of dicing with death, I emerged with only relatively minor bruises. So you got the knack of it? Don't be silly. Dying isn't something you can learn to do. Oh, Mr. Natsume, you keep talking about dicing with death and dying and so forth, but riding a bicycle is supposed to be fun. Oh no, that's just what people tell you. But it's an old wives' tale. Is it? I mean, I don't necessarily consult. To me, it's often just work. Anyway, it's like hiking. I mean, just consider the real name of the vehicle. And hiking is not fun because of the hiking. It's fun because of where you're going. It's not called a dicycle for nothing. How anyone expects to use such an aptly named vehicle to move forwards is beyond me. Pedal power promises pain. I didn't think it was possible to get worse with practice. I'm lucky to be alive. Although, I must say, after looking death in the eye for a whole week, I did at least manage to mount the steel reliably. Notwithstanding a few wobbles, I found I could make progress in the forward direction. What a triumph. Deduction is much the same. When first presented with a problem, the mental exertion of trying to solve it leads to a bitter disappointment. But after a week of picking one's way carefully along the path of reasoning and thought, one begins to see results. So, is that why all of your off-the-cuff deductions always seem half-baked? What a wonderful insight into your extraordinary mind, Mr. Sholmes. Unfortunately, after wobbling down the street, I noticed there was little stones everywhere. Death traps. Not that way, I said to myself. But the wild vehicle wouldn't listen. It wobbled me on and on down the street. So of course, I hit one of those deadly stones and the crazy colt threw me. It's just my luck. Dicycles are the epitome of my pitiful life. I wish I could disagree. On the same subject, I'm sure there's a famous American author who's written about having a similar experience. I don't know this person. Oh yes, I've read that essay too, Iris. Some of us are better read than others. Well, no more die cycles for me. Mr. Natsume, at least you have an interesting antidote to take with you back to Japan, if nothing else. Probably the whole die cycle thing makes more sense in Japanese, because it would be a Japanese word for bicycle, followed with a Japanese word for to die. You always manage to put a positive spin on things, don't you, Miss Susato? When they translate that to English, they had to, like, make it work in English, and it's a little bit cheesy in English. Personally, I haven't mounted a bicycle for some time. No, me neither. That's good. So, how about a jaunt? We shall all ride out together. Huh? That sounds great. I'll perch behind Miss Susato. But the sun is going down. It'll be pitch black before long. London street lamps are very bright, you know, and the fog isn't too thick today. But my beloved ride is all bent out of shape. My dear fellow, if you are bound to topple the vehicle anyway, it's fitting that it's already bent out of shape. It's settled then. Come along, Mr. Natsume, shall we go? Tsuki ga kiere desne. Don't tell me that's his translation of no thank you as well. Indeed, Mr. Natsume, the moon is at its most beautiful at the precisely this time in the evening. Oh. We're not Japanese. You can't beat around the bush with us. What a weird and wonderful world. Aren't you supposed to say, objection? I guess that's reserved for the main character. More of this. So, Constable Rolly Beat, reporting for duty. Thank you for the good offices of Lord Von Zeeks. Thank you to the... I'm back on my beat here in the capital, doing my best for the good citizens of London. So. My Rolly, back in his Bobby's uniform. You couldn't look any more handsome if you tried. My love. You say the sweetest things. Oh, Pat. Oh, Rolly. To us, Lord Van Zeeks isn't the Reaper of the Bailey at all. Oh no, of course not. He's the patron saint of Bobbies. The patron saint? Oh yes, Pat, you're right. My darling, keep us in pocket. Keep us in pocket, he is. On my first day back on the job, what did I find in the gutter? A shillin', my love, a whole shillin'. Oh, Rolly, I always believed in you. I always knew one day you'd find some big small change. Just that shillin', I could buy you a cheap bunch containing a single flower, my sugar. A single flower, oh, how romantic. But, I'm so sorry, Pat. Only moments ago, that shillin' disappeared. Disappeared? But how, my love, how? I think maybe, no, I'm sure. It was that girl here, so... You swiped my precious shillin', didn't you, you cheeky little diver? Blimey. You took your time getting around to me, didn't you? I thought that lovey-dovey stuff weren't gonna end. So, a shillin', you say. Lifted from you, were it? I know nothing about it. Where's the evidence, eh? Right there, the evidence is dancing around on the back of your hand, young lady. You stole it from me, you lifted it from my pocket just now. You've got a nerve stealing it from a Bobby. Cobblers, this coin's mine. How would you know anyway? How could you know if it was taken just now or not? Dear me, you don't get it, do you? You hardly got a penny to your name, so that coin felt as heavy to me as a bar of gold. We haven't got a penny to our name. Okay. I'll tell you, the moment it left my pocket, I knew. I felt myself get a good few pounds lighter. Yep, that coin has got my blood, sweat, and tears all over it. What's the matter with ya, Mr. Naruto? Huh? Me? Sorry. I didn't even know I was even here. When a lady's in trouble, a true jit's supposed to be there to help straight away, not an hour later. This isn't my fault. I haven't stolen anything. And what about you, Sholmes? I thought you were supposed to be a great detective. Dear me, Miss Lestrade. You took your time getting around to me, didn't you? I thought that long dispute was never gonna end. You only said give us a minute when we spotted you over the road and said hello. And that was 10 minutes ago, Guinea. You've just been standing here listening to We've just been standing here listening to you quarrel with this Bobby. Do beg your pardon, madame. We shouldn't be troubling the public with police business. But that shilling belongs to us, doesn't it, Rolly? Of course it does, my love. It's just for you and me, my darling. This was just supposed to be a nice stroll with Iris and Mr. Sholmes before afternoon tea. Why do we have to run into another fiasco on Briar Road? I don't really see how we could be of any help, Gina. There's no way of knowing who the coin really belongs to if it was just dropped in the gutter. I wouldn't be so sure of that, Runo. What? I have a feeling I might know the answer to the question of whose coin that is. Ah, my bright young fellow lodger. Let us hear your deduction. Well, there's actually a reason why I suggest a stroll down Briar Road. Why I suggested. Oh, what reason? You see, I was here yesterday and, well, I dropped a little something. So I wanted to come and look for it while enjoying an afternoon stroll. Wait, you dropped something? You don't mean... It was the pocket money that Hurley gave me. What's this, Iris? You dropped that, did you? I'm sorry. I went to the market on Lime Street yesterday to pick up some herbs, you see. But on the way, I must have dropped it. That 1 shilling coin you gave me. Oh. A 1 bob hit? 1 bob bit? Yes. And when I thought back over the route I took, I realized I must have dropped it here. Constable, you haven't seen it, have you? It's all my pocket money, and now it's gone. Well, I'm afraid I don't know anything about that, young lady. What rotten luck dropping your money like that. Sorry. I dare say the constable and his companion could give you a run for your money with those wide eyes. If it's all the same to you, Mr. Sholmes, I think I'd prefer not to be used as a yardstick for looking guilty. Well, it's tough, really, ain't it, Iris? You dropped it, so it ain't yours no more. Anyway, you know what they say, what goes around comes around, so don't feel bad. Bad luck, Iris, it doesn't look like you're going to get your coin back. Oh, I can't believe I lost it. And straight after Hurley gave it to me as well. Yes, regrettable indeed. I seem to recall that particular coin was rather significant. What do you mean, significant? To be specific, it was especially significant to you, Runo. Significant to me? Oh, you don't mean... It was the coin from last night's wager. The very same, my dear fellow. What's this then? What wager? It was a game of poker. A duel between Hurley and Runo. Poker? Whoa. That tricky card game, you mean? As a lawyer, I have the perfect poker face. You'll never be able to tell what I'm thinking, said he. Well, that's the antithesis of Ryanosuke. But depriving Mr. Naruhodo of his entire fortune was even easier than finding that missing thoroughbred. It was so infuriating. Reliving it now still makes me grit my teeth. Sorry, Iris, I had every intention of paying you back the money I owe you, but you'll have to wait, I'm afraid. Yes, I know, don't worry. Next month, month is fine. Let me guess, Odo. Your whole fortune was one whole shilling, my entire monthly stipend, and I lost all of it. And I handed it over to Mr. Sholmes. I gritted my teeth so hard my gums started to bleed. Please, Bruno, don't exaggerate. That's a horrible image. What about a lawyer who borrows money from a 10-year-old girl? Now that's a horrible image. Why do I feel like my reputation with this couple has just fallen through the floor? Ha 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 ha. There are a few things more invigorating than taking a man for all he's worth. Don't be so pleased with yourself, Hurley. It's not as if Bruno ever had a chance of winning. Wait, what? What do you mean by that? Well, using that special ink I developed, anyone could... Thank you, Iris, that will do. I'm sure this conversation is proving very dull for everyone. What's done is done. The game is over now. There's no point in crying over spilled milk. Special ink, you say? Well, so that sounds like the sort of risky business that's right up my alley. Oh, really? I love your dauntless spirit. You laugh in the face of danger. Come on then, Iris, spill it. What's the special ink about, eh? Oh, well, it's what's sometimes called invisible ink. All you have to do is write the suit and the number on the reverse side of every card. And with the aid of some special glasses, the whole game is laid bare to you. Wait, you were wearing glasses last night, weren't you, Mr. Sholmes? You said something along the lines of, my eyesight appears to have suddenly worsened. And the moment you failed to question that as odd was the moment I knew I had won the game. Mind games, was it? Trying to throw me off with your eccentric ways? So you're telling me Sholmes could see every card what Odo had? What? But that's not mind games, that's blatant cheating. My dear fellow, what an accusation. Would you honestly consider me a cheat? Please, I prefer trickster. Whatever you call it, the game doesn't count now. Understand, Mr. Sholmes? Dear me. Well, out of respect for the bad grace with which you take defeat, allow me to return your shilling. Did you hear that, Gina? So give it here. Leave me out of this. This here no bob bit was mine from the start, no question. No, sir, that there one bob bit was lifted from this here robber's pocket just a few minutes ago. You keep saying. Come on then, where's the evidence? The law, right, is all about evidence. I know my stuff. You see, Mr. Naruhodo, use a trite excuse in court, and others will parrot it. Only whenever I do say that in court, it isn't a trite excuse, you know. I said so. That coin that has got my blood, sweat, and tears all over it. That's right, it has. Rolly's blood, sweat, and tears are the evidence. Blood, you say? In that case, it's time for this. So do you think... Well, if there's any trace of blood on that coin, we'll soon know about it. Alright, Guinea. Hold very still. Yeah, what? Look at that. See there on the coin? It's clearly changed color. In other words, there is blood on this coin. Once again, as I said, sir, that would be my blood, sweat, and... Oh, wait, I've seen blood turn that color before. Yes, I know who it is. I know whose coin it is. What? The rightful owner of this blood-stained shilling is... Bruno. Huh, me. And from the appearance of the blood, it would say it is quite fresh. Left within the last 24 hours. Within the last, then in that case, because he bled on it when he bit his lip, right? So this is the coin which Holmes had off Odo last night in the poker game? Oh, Runo, do you mean you really did make your gums bleed? I told you I was so infuriated to lose I had to grit my teeth as I handed over the money. Blimey, you're hard up as me by the sound of it, but I thought you had a proper job. Come on, Gina, just hand it over, would you? The shilling? That's rightfully mine. Alright, fine, alright then. Just stop your bleeding staring. I mixed the voices there, but whatever. I finally have it back. It's like a dream come true. I nearly had that one in the bag and all. What wonderful news, Runo. I'm so happy for you. Now then, as you promised... I'd like my money back, please. The shilling I lent you before. Ah. You did say you'd pay it back out of this month's pocket money, didn't you? Oh, yes. Well then, I suppose. My dear fellow, do you be kind with your gums, to your gums. Looks like that shilling was always destined to be taken from you, sir. For some reason, the phrase serves you right is floating around in my head. So, Iris, as promised, here is the shilling I owe you. Oh, you're repaying me already. Well, thank you. Next month would have been fine, though. What's it all that anyway? Wouldn't you lend an Odo money? What are you lending Odo money for? Oh yes, well actually it's because I went to the Lime Street Market yesterday to buy herbs. For Runo. Herbs for Odo. Yes, the team is Usata left behind is top quality Gyokuro tea, but it's just so bitter. So when Iris suggested mixing it with some herbs to make it more palatable, I asked her to buy me some. That's right, we've had a special Japanese herbal tea with leftover Gyokuro. I'm going to call it Susie's Special Blend. I hope you'll all try it. The excruciating bitterness clings to the throat if you can persuade the bright green goop to leave the cup. Why, it sounds quite delicious. Yeah, right. Sounds like soap. Keeps going. Well, it would appear the shilling's brief adventures are now at an end. Adventures? You must agree, my dear fellow, that the coin has made us considerable journey since last night. Let's see, originally it was the coin I was supposed to give to Iris to pay her for the herbs, but then in our poker duel last night it passed to you, Mr. Sholmes, who gave it to Iris as spending money, but then I dropped it here sometime yesterday. Then my beloved Rolly found it a little while ago and picked it up, before I was lifted from my pocket by this here diver. I then used my favorite gum to show up the blood that was on it, gun, and let slip that Sholmes' little scam in the card game last night, the annulment of which resulted in the coin returning to the ownership of Mr. Naruhodo, allowing me to pay Iris the money I owed her after all, for the herb she bought in order to make Susie's Special Blend tea. Why'd they have to summarize it for me? That was wasted words. I understood all that, and now, after all that, the coin is resting safely in my pocket. So you say. It got lifted again, right? Yeah, you're right. That was an adventure. But what are you supposed to take away from it, eh? That this 1 shilling coin belongs to Iris and Iris alone, I think. I cannot fault your observation, Mr. Naruhodo. Well, you know what they say. What goes around comes around. Why do I get the feeling that Iris knew it was coming around to her from the very beginning? Priceless, as they say. Well then, my dear fellow, how about this evening we indulge in some bitter tea and a bitter rematch? I'll even allow you to stake the coming month's spending money in advance. I fold. This court is now in session for the trial of Mr. Sherlock Holmes. This is the most extraordinary case of murder. Counsels, I assume you may proceed. I may proceed. Yes, my lord. The defense is ready. At your discretion, my lord. Very well. I hereby call on the prosecution to introduce the case. They didn't bother with the rope throw. The incident in question took place 2 days ago, late at night when the ground was blanketed with snow. The location of the incident was the residence of the accused, Mr. Sherlock Holmes. Indeed, the now famous address of number 221B Baker Street, was it? The address may have enjoyed fame once, my lord, but will henceforth endure infamy for this grim crime. Yes, sir, well put. The victim, a certain Madame Rosie, was found asphyxiated on the accused's sofa. My word. But it's unclear as to whether the victim was actually killed in the defendant's suite or not. After all, when Mr. Holmes left the room for only a brief moment, Madame Rosie somehow vanished herself out of his room completely. Vanished herself, counsel? The victim? Quite true, my lord. There is but one adjoining door between my drawing room and the kitchen. Yet having brewed some tea in the kitchen, I returned to find the room completely empty. There was nobody else present? Ordinarily, my fellow lodger Iris would have been at home. However, on the day in question, she had been invited to a meeting of a scientific society in the city. I'm afraid you have a propensity for exaggeration, sir. You claim the victim vanished herself, but really, it seems to me entirely plausible that she chose to leave via the main entrance of your suite. As it happens, my lord, the door to the accused's room was locked at the time, from the inside. Very true, Inspector. As such, I can say with considerable certainty that the victim did not leave via my front door. But what about, yes, she should have snuck out through a window. Objection. The windows in the rooms were not locked, it's true, and the victim had the opportunity. However, why would she choose a window when there was a door? However, there was snow all around the building outside, not a patch of it had been disturbed. Would my learned friend care to explain how the victim could have left without leaving a trail? So the victim, Madame Rosie, somehow vanished from the scene before she was killed. Naturally, I was alarmed by the sudden disappearance of my guest. So I summoned this gentleman, who resides in the attic, room above my own, and we took a cab to Scotland Yard. I can confirm that the defendant called for me, and I saw my suite on my way downstairs. And yes, I'm quite sure it was empty, just as Mr. Holmes had said. I'm yawning. When he reached the yard, this very detective happened to be there. Oh, well, yes, you see, I was just in my office for a while, having got back from some important business. And then, having explained the situation to the inspector, we traveled back to Baker Street together. At that time, there were no footprints in the snow around the building other than the ones we made. Do I take it then, counsel, that you personally witnessed the scene where the incident took place? No, my lord. I went straight up to bed in my own room in the attic. Inspector Gregson, however, was met with a most blood-curdling sight. On Mr. Holmes' sofa, the vanished Madame Rosie, motionless. So the victim was already dead when you discovered her, Inspector? No, my lord. Not dead. But not far off it. She mustered all her remaining strength to say these dying words. That rotter, Holmes, will be the death of me. Yes, I overheard that remark at the time, too, delivered in a rasping voice full of malice. No. Those words, indeed, proved to be her last. The victim expired moments later, there on the sofa. The cause of death was identified as damage to the respiratory tract as a result of strangulation. Pray, does the accused dare to contest the inspector's account? Certainly not. In fact, the inspector has done an unusually fine job of summarizing the salient points. Sholmes will be the death of me. Damning departing words, indeed. In her final moments, the victim named her killer. You, Mr. Sherlock Sholmes. But the defendant had no reason to take the victim's life. Perhaps you could tell the court, Mr. Sholmes, who exactly is Madame Rosie. Who exactly this Madame Rosie was. Ah, yes, of course. Did I ever mention her to you? I extended an invitation to her that evening, though she is loquacious in the extreme. The most trivial of matters quickly becomes a quarrel. I was only too pleased to leave her presence to make tea. Great. It would appear, then, that the accused did in fact have a motive for silencing his aristic guest permanently.
Objection.
Putting that tenuous motive aside, what about the other mysteries surrounding the case? I am inclined to agree with the defense. There remain a number of inscrutable details. The victim's alleged disappearance and subsequent reappearance, leaving no trail of footprints, for example. That's right, the crime described by the prosecution could never have happened. Yet the victim named the accused in her dying breath. It seems to me that my learned friend has overlooked a significant detail here. Nonsense, what have I overlooked? The man in the dock, the so-called great detective, is all too frequently makes the following bold claim. There is no crime beyond the realms of possibility, no mystery beyond my powers of reasoning. Ah. So, Mr. Sholmes, you will have no difficulty in explaining how the crime thus described could have taken place. Therefore, I propose a toast to the great detective upholding his name. But of course, were I to put my mind to the matter, the crime would immediately appear to all present to be entirely feasible. Please, Mr. Sholmes, whose side are you on? All you need to say is, no, even I can't think of a way that a crime like that could have been committed. Let the accused admission be noted by the court. Though the crime may appear impossible to us mortals of inferior mental capacity, this man alone claims to know exactly how it was done.
Hold it.
Now hold on, that's a very fragile argument. Thank you, counsels. I believe I've heard more than enough to proceed with my adjudication. The accused great detective did, in some inscrutable manner, willfully murder the victim, Madame Rosie. Therefore, I find the defendant guilty. Let this man be taken from this courtroom, and in some equally inscrutable manner, be sanctioned for his crimes. Court is adjourned.
Hold it.
My lord, please. The truth about the mysteries surrounding this case are known to another besides the great detective. What's this? Upon my word, Miss Daruhado, you're coming along wonderfully. You have deduced a fundamental truth about this case, I believe. Which would be, detective, that the truth of this case is known. Only to the true culprit, obviously. Is that not so, Gregson? What? Well, I suppose, yes. You don't mean, are you suggesting, Mr. Sholmes, that you have an idea as to what actually happened that night? An idea, my dear fellow? I could explain the entire incident from start to finish with not a single detail omitted.
Objection.
It seems the detective has failed to grasp the situation. Pray, Mr. Reaper? Which of us has truly failed to grasp the situation, I wonder? Then answer me this. You claim that prior to the incident, the victim suddenly vanished without a trace from your room. If so, how exactly did Madame Rosie disappear? Why, naturally, via the window. It was ajar, after all. But that can't be. The room is the whole story. It's the whole story about the street level. And anyway, no prints were found in the snow. There are many number of ways one could avoid leaving tracks in the snow, surely? Such as flying, for instance. A fallacious notion. And to where do you propose the victim flew, Mr. Sholmes? It is not entirely plain. Is it not entirely plain? The culprit's abode, of course. For having left my suite, that is clearly where Madame Rosie was murdered. Take a moment to consider the cruel irony, if you will. By her own volition, she flew directly to her death.
Objection!
Do you forget, Detective, the victim's corpse was discovered on your own sofa? No doubt because her killer carried her back there. But what about the lack of footprints in the snow again, then? There just weren't any. Other than your own from when we returned home ourselves. If by our footprints you refer to your own and mine, you are quite right, but there were those of another. On the night in question, there was one other person who could have conveyed the victim to my sofa. What? Good gracious. To whom do you refer, sir? A man whose somewhat unveiling presence at the scene of the crime would be questioned by no one. Unavailing, odd, you don't mean... Indeed I do. A man who hastened to the scene directly from learning of the incident at Scotland Yard. Namely, Gregson. You! Gregson! Inspector Gregson. When you arrived at my address in Baker Street, you were carrying the half-dead Madame Rosie with you. You waited for a suitable opportunity, and then laid the victim on my sofa. You did? What?
Objection!
But we were with the inspector when he arrived. How could he possibly have been carrying the victim? We would have noticed. My dear fellow, a most obvious answer presents itself, does it not? The inspector is rarely, if ever, without his overcoat. The victim was simply conveyed in one of the many pockets. I fail to see what makes this detective great, but I can say one thing with great certainty. A human body cannot fit into the pocket of an overcoat. I believe you may all have fallen foul of a rather significant misapprehension. What? Madame Rosie was not a human. I beg your pardon? Mr. Sholmes. Yes, Mr. Naruhodo, is something troubling you, perhaps? Whatever gives you that idea? Exactly what sort of creature was Madame Rosie? Is it not apparent already? A parakeet, of course. Huh? A most self-conceited specimen, in fact. A parakeet? She was an incessant talker, I must say. Oh, 'cause she flew? Okay. Her manner was quite intolerant at times. Won't she turn every conversation to a quarrel, I thought, to strangle the creature on more than one occasion. You had a quarrel with a parakeet? But of course, why else would she have chosen to fly from my window so uncordially that evening? To the abode of this inspector here beside me, no less. To Inspector Gregson's abode? But why? Can parakeets fly? Because that was the parakeet's home, naturally. What are you? The inspector was called away from town for some days, so it was arranged that I would look after the bird. But it would appear that she was overcome with a sudden yearning for her keeper, thus prompting her flight from my comfortable suite to the inspector's office at Scotland Yard. Well, Gregson, I believe it's high time you explained. Give us your account of what happened that night, sparing no detail, of course. Inspector Gregson? It was an accident. I got back from being away that evening, you see. I just walked through the door of my office. I never imagined Madame Rosie would be on her way back to the yard as well. I slammed the door shut behind me just as she was trying to fly through it. So Madame Rosie, she got sandwiched between the door and the frame and fell to the floor. Never to move again, because of me. Well, I had to do something, and just when I was trying to think of a plan, you fellas arrived talking about some incident at Baker Street. Ah. I had to hide Madame Rosie in a hurry. So I stuffed her in my coat pocket and got in the cab with the pair of you. What could possibly have motivated you to behave in such a manner, Inspector? Lord Strongheart, sir. What, Lord Strongheart? Please don't tell me I didn't hear that right. It was the Lord Chief Justice who asked me to look after the bird in the first place. She had been living with the pigeons at the Supreme Court until then. But apparently the mother birds had started to pick on her. So for the past 6 months or so, I've been caring for her in my office at the yard. I see. If anything happens to that bird, just imagine. No pay, no time off for the rest of my career. You mark my words, that's what's gonna happen. That's why well... But the victim's dying words, Inspector. The court heard earlier that Madame Rosie spoke the name of her assailant on her deathbed. That rotten Sholmes will be the death of me. Well, it's a parrot, so she's just parroting Gregson. And indeed she did, quite uncalled for, wouldn't you agree? But those words are true feelings, are they not, Inspector? Clearly you speak to me often at your office at the yard, in this disparaging manner. A manner that the merry parakeet took much delight in mimicking. Oh, come on, I mean, have you read this month's edition of Rance magazine, eh? I'm... sorry. This is all absolutely true. Something wrong, Lord Van Zieks? No, nothing. I almost drifted off for a moment there. It's hard not to drift off when you've been kept waiting 3 hours already. I wonder if we'll manage to meet with Lord Strongheart at all today. We may have to deliver the report on the Windibank case that he asked for on another day. Tell me, Inspector, what became of that bird? Madame Rosie, you mean? She had a narrow escape, but she's still alive. I delivered her back here not long ago, actually, on Lord Strongheart's orders. He's hoping the pigeons will accept her now. It was something of a shock to hear that she'd been crushed in the doorway of your office, especially as we were all under the misapprehension that Madame Rosie was a person. Sorry about that. It was Lord Strongheart's demand that... Ah, good, you're here. I apologize for my tardiness. I'm exactly 3 hours, 24 minutes, and 57 seconds late. Oh no, my lord, please, don't trouble yourself. Nothing gives us greater pleasure than standing here doing nothing for hours on end. Heartening. So let's hear it then. Your report. Windibank trial is concluded, but this is far from over. It seems that dark, far eastern lawyer and I have some shared destiny. We will meet again. Of that I have no doubt. Did you see that, Lord Van Zieks? Did you? Madame Rosie went flying off among the pigeons there. Happy as Larry she was. Really, Inspector? You must be relieved. Well, they had no gameplay whatsoever, and was incredibly boring. There was nothing entertaining about that. It wasn't even funny, I didn't even laugh. But it got done, and by getting it done, I have succeeded in finishing everything there needs to finish. There is to be finished in the game. I am done. Okay, there's probably going to be one more part in the series where I do like some sort of little bit of comments or something. But this is the end of the gameplay. If you could call that gameplay. I said there was no gameplay. This is the end of the stuff that's in the game. If you watched all that for some reason, thank you for watching it.